Did you know that one of the most important characters in The Godfather had very little screen time but made a huge difference in the story? Yes, I'm talking about Enzo, the baker. A secondary character who, at a crucial moment, helped Michael Corleone save Vito's life. But what led an ordinary worker to risk everything for a powerful Don? Was there a reason strong enough to justify this act of bravery? Let's explore this story now. Stay with me and don't go anywhere. To better understand his decision, we first need to look at the problem young Enzo was facing. During Connie Corleone's wedding, as was tradition, Vito was receiving requests from those seeking his help. Among them was Nazarene, the baker, a humble man who worked hard to support his family. With respect and concern, he approached Don Corleone to ask for a favor that directly affected his daughter and a young man named Enzo. Nazarene explained that Enzo was an Italian immigrant working in his bakery and was in love with his daughter. They wanted to get married, but there was a major obstacle. Enzo was not yet a US citizen and was at risk of being deported. If that happened, his daughter would be devastated, and Enzo's future in the United States would come to an end. Vito listened carefully to Nazarene's plea. For anyone else, this problem would have no solution. But Don Corleone was not an ordinary man. Without hesitation, he assured Nazarene that he would take care of the matter. And when Vito Corleone gave his word, it meant the problem was solved. Some time later, the attack that nearly cost Don Corleone his life took place. That night, Enzo went to the hospital intending to personally thank him for everything he had done. He had no connection to the criminal world, he was just a baker, but he knew that his happiness depended on the Don's intervention. However, upon arriving at the hospital, he noticed that something was wrong. The place was practically empty, with no guards or protection for Vito, who was still vulnerable after the assassination attempt. Only Michael was there, and he quickly realized that the situation was about to get worse. At that moment, Enzo had a choice. He could leave, stay out of it, since he was not a violent man and had no obligation to get involved. But instead of running away, he decided to stay. Realizing the imminent danger, he stood with Michael in front of the hospital, pretending to be a guard to scare off potential attackers. Even though he was so nervous that he could barely light a cigarette afterward, his determination was evident in that instant. He was not a warrior or a mafioso, but his loyalty and gratitude to Vito Corleone made him face his fear. The tension in the air was palpable. The night was dark and cold, and the silence was eerie. Suddenly, a black car approached slowly. Inside, silhouettes of men could be seen in the darkness. Michael's instinct told him they weren't just visitors, they were men sent to finish the job. For a moment, he felt a chill run down his spine, but he forced himself to stay calm. With a glance at Enzo, he made a decision: they had to appear more dangerous than they really were. Michael adjusted his coat, slid a hand inside as if holding a weapon, and kept a firm expression. Beside him, Enzo, though trembling, mimicked his intimidating posture. The illusion worked. The car remained still for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. From inside, the men watched the scene cautiously. Two seemingly armed figures were guarding the hospital entrance. Maybe it wasn't worth the risk. The sound of the engine broke the silence, and a moment later, the car disappeared into the darkness. Michael felt a slight relief. He had managed to ward off the threat without resorting to violence. When he looked at Enzo, he noticed that the baker was trembling so much that he could barely light a cigarette. Without hesitation, Michael took out his lighter and lit it for him, displaying an unusual calm for someone who, until that moment, had never been directly involved in the family's business. Perhaps his military experience had taught him to remain serene under pressure. But Enzo was different. A simple civilian, someone who had never faced danger. Still, the most important thing was that he did not run away. Without weapons, without training, only with the strength of loyalty and bravery, those two men had saved Vito Corleone's life that night. And at that moment, Michael understood something deeper. There was something within him that set him apart from the rest. Something he himself had not recognized until then. Perhaps his destiny was more tied to the family than he had ever imagined. That night at the hospital was the perfect proof of how the reciprocity that Vito Corleone cultivated throughout his life manifested in the most unexpected moments. Enzo, a simple baker, without weapons, without power, without experience in the criminal world, ended up saving the life of one of the most powerful men in New York. It wasn't a soldier of the family or one of the capo regimes who protected Vito that night. Many of those in his organization disappeared out of fear or confusion after the attack. But Enzo, who had no obligation, stood by Michael simply because he felt he owed something to the Don. This act demonstrated something essential about Vito Corleone. His power was not based solely on the fear he inspired but on the genuine loyalty he managed to cultivate. He understood that true strength was not only in the armed men around him but in the relationships he built throughout his life. A small favor, a gesture of kindness, could turn into an act of unwavering devotion. And so, on that dark night, it was the courage of a simple baker that ensured Vito Corleone lived to fight another day. Well, friends, that's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends to support our work. And tell me in the comments, what do you think about Enzo's act? Thank you very much, and see you next time.